Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to Counselor's Couch 101. I'm Jim Stump, and I appreciate your comments and your emails. So that it lets me know what you're thinking, so I can interact more timely with you and the things that are on your mind. I wanted to mention a conversation I had with a lady a couple of days ago, but I need to preface that with a little bit of background information. I'm really fond of old movies. I watch them all the time. I just watched Steve McQueen's last movie from 1980. It was called The Hunter. Not a great movie or anything like that, but I just wanted to see how he ended his career, so I watched that one. But I watch old movies all the time. I watched Lawrence of Arabia. Not long ago, I watched Ship of Fools with Lee Marvin, an all-star cast. I do stuff like that. Um, but I was reminded after talking to this lady of a movie, I think it's 1963, starring Paul Newman. It was called Cool Hand Luke. If you know the movie, you know what I'm going to get to in a moment. But it's a story about a prison, and the prison members, the inmates, are working on a road or it's a drainage ditch or something like that, and they have a stir up and they have an dust up with the guards and all that. When the whole thing settles down, the head of the prison comes up to them, and that's Strother Martin, and he delivers an iconic line. He says to the prisoners, "What we have here is failure to communicate," right? What he meant was every one of them knew the rules. They just didn't believe them, right? So he's there to remind them, I told you the rules, and this is the way it's going to go. And I don't want you to think otherwise, because that is the truth of the situation. So, to get back to my story about the conversation with the lady, I was talking with her, and this lady had been severely emotionally wounded by another woman, right? A woman came in and messed up her family and changed the course of the lady's life that I was talking to. And she's really upset with this woman. She really carries a deep amount of animosity in her. That animosity was hurting the lady that I was talking to, and I was trying to get around that and let her see that and let her release some of it. And in doing that, I was discussing the emotional motivation of the woman who had harmed her. I was just started saying, what are the possibilities for her behavior? Let's stop and think about this. Where might all of that negativity and all that anger have come from? And as I'm going through possibilities like this, the lady I'm talking to got very quiet, right? And finally, when I got to the end of my little discussion of it and asked her what she thought, she said, I just got really mad at you a minute ago because it sounded like you were defending her. And I don't believe she deserves to be defended. She really destroyed my family, and I'm really mad, right? And I said to her, I'm glad you said that because it opened up communication, right? Oftentimes, particularly in counseling situations, a client will be offended but not say anything. When that happens, usually the client goes away carrying a resentment, and that resentment can poison the counseling experience, right? And if they never mention it, it can never be solved, never be fixed. It can never be straightened out. Often the counselor will know that something happened, but maybe not know exactly what the thing was that happened, but can guess that I guess I offended my client. And you can ask, but if they won't tell you, you're still left wondering what to do about it. So I told her, I said, I'm glad you mentioned the fact because it gives us a chance to look at that exchange and find out how we can fix it. If we don't fix it, the relationship will likely be undermined and it'll erode, and very shortly it will end because someone will stop coming. And that's what happens a lot in relationships. Interesting enough, I see this a great deal between married couples. Some sort of a impasse comes up, someone's offended, they don't say something about it, they keep quiet, and they store up a resentment. And over time, we store up more and more resentments that poison the relationship, right? And what happens after that, after we build up enough of a brick wall against our partner, is that we're not hearing what they're saying. We are hearing what they're saying through the earmuffs, through the lenses of what we know about them, what we think we know about them, and what we think we know about their motivation and what they're saying. We're not even paying attention. We already had the whole thing played out in our mind, and we're ready to speak to the end of the conversation that we had in our head, not the one that's happening right here. Often, what's going on when someone's engaging in a conversation like that, the issue of contention at that moment is not the issue, right? It's not the real dynamic going on. There's something else emotionally in the background that's playing out and causing the conversation. You ever talk to someone who just simply would not be mollified? They're going to be angry no matter what you say, and they're going to keep going at this thing, whatever it is. And you know it's pointless. You know it's a waste of energy. You know it's a waste of time. That eventually this person is just going to vent all their negative feelings, and they're going to let go of it. And then you're going to be given the silent treatment for a few days, and then the whole thing will be forgotten. It was a waste. It was a waste of energy, and it built up more resentment in that relationship. The idea is when you can, maybe not in that moment, but when you can, sit down and dissect these things. Say, okay, where was this really coming from? You were complaining about the car, but it had nothing at all to do with the car. You said, I parked the car too far to the left and I banged the door when I opened it up. That really was not the issue. And if you dig down deep into it, you're going to find something else, usually something from earlier in life. And oftentimes it's from something that a person experienced while they're growing up. Now, oftentimes I hear people say, I just want to be heard, right? And so in an incident like the car being parked in the wrong place, too close to the wall and like that, it's like the person complaining when he or she was growing up never had a chance to be heard, or people dismissed everything that person said, and they built up a resentment around it. And so it's not where the car was parked, it was the idea that someone didn't listen to them and follow their direction, right? They had failure to communicate. But part of the failure to communicate is that the person who's trying to do the communication is not really identifying the real issue, right? That's what it is. It's coming from something else, and we need to find out what that is if we're going to fix that and have a better relationship. And as we dissect these things and look at them more closely and more deeply, we begin to understand one another better. I promise you, relationships grow a whole lot closer when you take the time to do this. It can be a little bit scary, or maybe a lot scary, because you are afraid that you know what's going to happen when you bring that subject up. But it's worth doing. And sometimes, I'm not promoting business or anything, but sometimes people say, I just need that third person there, to hold the boundaries of the conversation and keep us focused on the real issue and not get sidetracked on things, right? And the third person can reflect back onto the dynamic of what's happening to the two people in the relationship. So sometimes that helps. You don't have to go forever to counseling, but sometimes a session, maybe two, maybe a session or two or three, and then you come back in 2 months and talk about something that's developed. Maybe after that. I've said this before, and I'll mention it here again. I have a lot of clients who, they talk to me from time to time. And I ask them, I say, along about Sunday night or Monday morning, send me a text message. And it usually says, hey, Jim, you got time for us to talk sometime this week, right? And I says, I'll check the schedule and get back to you, And I do that. And I send them back some possibilities. And if they fit, they'll sign up for a session. And I might not see them again for another few weeks or months, but that's fine because it works. I tell people, I don't want to bore you. I don't want to take up your time. I don't want to spend your money. I want to talk to you when you want to talk, right? And it's the same thing with relationships. If you're in a relationship and you know that you've built up walls and you have resentments and you know you're not really communicating, you're just arguing the same old things over and over and over again, and you're sick of it. It's time to take a different approach to that. You can do it by laying your cards on the table, telling your partner exactly what you want to do and why, and find a calm, quiet time to sit down and discuss the issues and find out why we behave the way we behave in this relationship. And when you do that, people get closer together. And also, that person who didn't feel like they were heard, they feel like they were heard if you listen. But we can't let it disintegrate into a tirade from one person and the other person doesn't get to speak. So we have to work on that. And if you want some suggestions on that, send me some questions down in the comments. Send me an email like a lot of people are doing. The email address you know is counselorscouch101@mail.com. Send your questions about how to do this type of negotiation, and we can discuss it in future posts like this, right? Failure to communicate. What we have here is failure to communicate. 1963, Strother Martin. Is still true. You know, if you get a chance, check that out. You can even go on YouTube and just look at that one scene, that one clip. You don't even have to watch the whole movie, right? It's worth your time. Thanks for coming. I look forward to talking with you again. Have a great weekend.